Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Piqued number 14. Piqued is a meetup for electronic music makers and enthusiasts. And tonight we feature artists VIR and WabiSabi. I'm your host, Corey Luna. On AV is Rich Hogben, and we're broadcasting mostly from San Francisco, and WabiSabi is in Washington. So, Ryan and Dave, thank you so much for playing Piqued tonight. Really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
So we had a couple technical difficulties in the beginning, but we're running smooth now, and we're looking to have a real good show. Via's got a great set. He's going to be playing first, and then we're going to have WabiSabi right afterwards. And just so you all know, WabiSabi also has some pretty awesome stickers as well. So let's go. And so our show will start off with Veer's performance. We'll have a brief intermission. Then we'll go into WabiSabi's performance. And then we'll have a group interview with both artists after the performances. Each artist will perform a 20 to 25 minute set of their choice. And I'll be taking questions from the audience from the YouTube stream. So let's go ahead and start with Veer. When you are ready, let's go ahead and Luna on AV's for Chogband, of course. We're having a great night. Welcome back, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Again, let's say thanks so much to VIR. That was a great set, a lot of energy in that, so many transitions. We're going to be getting into some questions afterwards and at the end of the set. And we're all looking forward to hearing a little bit more about what went into that set, VIR. Really great set, really wonderful. We love that piano roll transition, that Eastern European influence that came in there. It was really fantastic. And we'll go out some questions about the equipment you're using too. Again, we're all speculating, we'll have some ideas, but we can't wait to hear what that is all about and what went into writing that set. Really fantastic. Now we're getting ready to go into WabiSabi's set. We'll be going into it momentarily. I'm sure Rich will give me the okay once we're ready to go. Again, we've been having a little technical difficulties with our setup tonight. Not sure what's going on. I guess it's just 2020. There's nothing else I can say about it. It's just 2020. I'll just say, hey, it's the year's fault, man. Nothing I can do about it. But we're doing really great. And we're still getting little connections going on. Again, 2020 is hitting us hard. But we're looking really good right now. And we're going to get into WabiSabi. So here he comes. Look at those beautiful Japanese maple leaves on this beautiful sticker. Isn't that beautiful? Hello, Ryan and Dave. Thank you so much for performing tonight.
Hey.
It's really great.
Oh, thanks.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
It was a pleasure, really.
So, tell us a little bit about how you guys came about doing your sets tonight. Ryan, let's start with you. Tell us about how you started preparing for your set.
Oh, sure. That's a good question. I began preparing. Let me turn off my monitors here. I started just thinking like what songs would go good together and provide some kind of contrast from song to song. Maybe that's more of like a micro level answer to your bigger question of like how did I arrive at this type of music for this set. I arrived at this type of music, I guess, by, well, I don't know, it's just kind of all I've been creating lately. There was a time when I made some more ambient music, and I played that at a different live event, kind of pre-COVID. But since then, I've kind of been doing all this more up-tempo, kind of dance music-focused stuff. So for me, that was the obvious choice, just because it's fresh in my mind.
It's very well appreciated, man. It's really nice.
Thank you.
I think I just disappeared.
You did.
Oh, I think I'm back.
Okay.
You're
good.
back.
All right. Great. And Dave, same question. Tell us about how you prepared for your set tonight. What went into that?
So a few weeks ago, when you approached me and asked me if I wanted to perform on this, I actually had a patch going using the Cubic Chord version 2, and I was just kind of experimenting with it. So I had something set up, and then I just kept adding and adding on to it, and it started out as a very ambient chord, and then they arpeggiating the individual notes on the chord and everything, and it was pretty neat. But I thought, spice it up a little bit, which is kind of a fault of mine. I always try to spice it up, add in some percussion and drums and everything, so it kind of became quasi upbeat. So it just evolved into a few different sections, and I kept on adding on to it. Even today, I added on that last piece using the clouds. Just keeps on going on and on.
It's really wonderful to hear the evolution of that track go into different pieces. Sounds like you're going from like module to module and kind of showcasing what you can do with them.
Yeah, kind of in a way. So usually in my sets, live sets, I usually start out with an ambient mood, and then I build it up to more up tempo, and then come back down to ambient again, kind of let people down. So it's kind of generally how I run it. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously different sections of the rack where they're providing the different sections of the song, and fading in between them is kind of the tricky part. They got to all sync together and everything. So it's a good challenge, especially on modular. It's a good challenge to do.
It definitely is. Now, Ryan, tell us a bit about your setup tonight. Like, what are you using? Looks like you've got like an octave track in there.
That's true. I have a couple Groovebox type machines. This is kind of a difficult one for me. Generally speaking, I'm happy to discuss composition, but if I can avoid talking about like the nitty-gritty gear specifics, I'd like to do that.
All right.
I mean, I respect those things are very interesting to a lot of people, especially like to newcomers, especially. But I also see that type of discussion kind of feeding what I interpret as an unhealthy commodity fetishism that is existing in the electronic community.
All right.
Interesting.
Well, Dave, can you tell us a little bit about what you're using tonight? There were quite a few questions about, what's making that, the kick drum beat that sounds like a heartbeat, and Next Expanse wanted to know what you're using to make the bell sounds.
Yeah, so let me point towards the rack a little bit. So on the kick side, actually a couple of weeks ago, I did a challenge for noise engineering. I forgot who did it. It was Sarah something. She did a one module song for noise engineering based on the BIA, the Stimulus Iteritas Alter. So I did one on the Manis Iteritas, the one module song. And then I liked the sound of that of the BIA so much, I went out and bought one. So the Stimulus Iteritas Alter is the one providing the kick drum. It's the first time I've actually used it as in a patch at all. And the kick drum on it is really nice sounding. But I have that going through streams as a compressor, so it's giving that extra bottom end oomph to it. On the bells, I guess those would be the rings. So I have two rings coming out of marbles, sequenced out of marbles, and they're set to 2 octaves. So that's probably what's providing the bell sound, I would imagine. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. Very nice, man. Yeah, we're all really impressed with the variety that you threw into your set. Well, really, both of you. I was impressed. Everyone online kept on commenting on these beautiful pieces going on. Like, Ryan, you had these great transitions. How many transitions did you put into your set tonight?
Yeah, that's a toughie, man. I do a lot, especially for like a setting like this, where I'm imagining most people are probably sitting at home watching something on a laptop. In that context, I think it's kind of hard to maintain interest with like kind of repetitive dance music, just because the ear wants to hear something new unless you're like really moving to it. So for something like tonight, I did a lot of transitional things and those kinds of phrases to maintain interest. And if I was playing this sort of material live for people who are on a dance floor, for example, I don't think I would go quite that crazy with it. Well, hopefully that makes sense.
Oh, all right.
That Eastern sounding beat at the very end there. I mean, I kept on waiting for like a voice to come in, like a wailing voice. That would have been perfect. It was a great beat. I love that. That was really cool.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that track is a little bit hard to work into the set because it's in 3/4 as opposed to like the more bog standard 4/4, which means I couldn't like really like smoothly move from one to the other because the rhythms wouldn't really line up. I've been trying to like experiment generally with pushing the bounds of like the traditional dance music form when I can, but it's challenging, you know. People find the familiar very comforting, especially like repetition is very comforting. But there's got to be a balance, at least I'm trying to find a balance between that kind of familiar rhythmic figure and something that's still like exciting to the ear. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a question that came up for both of you because of how influential your sets were, where we'd all like to know, what are your musical influences when you go into writing? Or if you want to just, or if you just want to address it in a more of a general context. Go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, that's a huge question, but a very interesting one. Musical influence. I mean, obviously, there's a lot here drawing from like the tradition of Detroit techno specifically. A lot of like the sharp, quick drum things are kind of coming from that world. But also, I'm trying to borrow some things that I hear in like more experimental rock music in a rhythmic perspective as well. It's difficult to describe exactly like how that all meshes together in one cohesive unit, and it doesn't always work, but that's the attempt anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Dave, what are some of your musical influences?
So, yeah, I go back a little bit farther. So back in the 80s, I was listening to a lot of Vangelis and Tangerine Dream and Eno and John McJar, and those were huge influencers for me. So a lot of my music kind of draws from that. And then kind of getting into, the 2000s and up, or 90s even, a lot of ambient stuff done by Moby is absolutely fantastic stuff. I know he's known for his dance music, but his ambient is really just spot on. So I take a lot of kind of influence from that. I'm more towards the West Coast style of modular, but I'm leaning. I mean, I have five sequencers in my rack, so I'm getting more to the East Coast style, more Berlin School type sequencing, repetitive beat, Tangerine Dream style. Starting to get a little bit more into that. It's a little bit, I would say, it's a little bit harder to do than ambient even, because it takes a lot of timing and I have a lot of outboard gear like a Digiton and Digitac that I'm starting to use. So it's starting to get more into that. But yeah, that's about it for my influences.
For the Berlin School stuff, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
I was just going to ask, like for the Berlin School stuff, would you list like someone like Klaus Schulze's on that list of like influences along Tangerine Dream and stuff?
Yeah. Well, Ulrich Strauss is someone I listen to a lot, and he's now with Tangerine Dream. Yeah, and he's a very big influence. He gets more, he and Niels Fromm are getting more into the cinematic style with a lot more, piano, adding in piano and processed vocals and everything. That stuff that's really much heavier production than what I would do in this rack. But,
sure.
With so many instruments out there now, like I just picked up a Wave State and Hydrosense and everything. There's so many ways now that you can get around kind of those production challenges. Like the Wave State, it's got just samples of the whole string sections. It's just incredible. I find myself kind of leaning more towards that type of challenge, trying to do something a little bit more cinematic, a little bit more in-depth production involved in it. But at its core, Berlin style is really just heavy sequencing and then adding in guitars and everything. So it's fun to do. I mean, it's a lot of fun. With an Octatrack, I'm sure you can kill it with Berlin style, but it's it's fun. Yeah.
And there was. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I was so into what you were talking about getting into the Berlin style, the sequencing. It was really fascinating. I wanted to hear more about it.
Yeah, it's an interesting subject if you really study like how some like early Tangerine Dream stuff like plays out, where you'll have like a repetitive musical form, and then I forgot the chap's name who does the sequencing in Tangerine Dream, but he'll like break out a specific note in the form, and then there will be several repetitions of that note like within the greater repetition, and then that kind of like cascades and builds this larger structure. It's really fascinating to hear it play out. It's almost like how can I explain this? You know, when you're listening to something and it's repetitive and you're hearing it over and over again, your brain is kind of like turning on it, and you're hearing it differently as time progresses. I feel like a lot of this, the Tangerine Dream, the Berlin School sequencing stuff is playing with this idea, because you're listening to this very long form, 20-minute composition, and at some point things are changing, but you're not sure if it's your ear that's hearing it differently or if it's actually different. I mean, I think that's like a really, really very interesting concept.
Yeah, that's true. And when I have a circadian rhythms. I got a performer. I got an eloquencer as my main sequencers. But those are all, you can go up to 64 steps, 128 steps. I got a Herma that'll do that. But I find lately I got a 4-step sequencer. Acid Rain Technologies 4-step sequencer, and then I just picked up a Vox Digitalis from Noise Engineering the other day, which is 16 steps. I find the short sequencers where you're doing just a repetitive 4-note sequence, and then on top of that maybe another 8-note sequence along the same chord or something is a lot more interesting than doing a whole 32-step sequence as it goes along, because then it sounds like a melody. So that repetitiveness of the very short sequences, and then layering those one on top of another, as Ryan said, it kind of makes for a psychoacoustical type of trickery. And it's fun to listen to. It really is, especially when you get effects, layered into it and everything.
Yeah. To just add on to what you were saying as well, I think having like a really tight limitation, like your musical phrase can only be 4 notes long, for example, like really makes you dig deep for how you use those 4 notes, what they are, and in some cases, depending on the tools you're using, like the specific timing between all those things, it becomes a very interesting exercise to do that type of musical project as opposed to like having a more traditional like long form step sequence.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's actually what I was originally doing, Corey, when I was talking about the cubic chord. That's what this patch started out with. It's a chord producer, so it can produce a dominant a 4-note chord. But what I was doing is I was sequencing all 4 notes on top of that, adding it through a delay and a reverb, so it would start blurring on each other and become the chord again, but with a different psychoacoustical type of way of hearing it. That's what I was experimenting with.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is really neat. It's fun.
I know exactly what you mean. I haven't done that specifically, but I have a cubic chord on loan from my buddy Lenny Hamaker, also known as Aton Leon, and it's a really fascinating piece to use. I've really enjoyed it myself, and I'm really impressed with how you sequenced it in this set.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard it, but I was yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so you heard you probably can't hear it now. The chord was coming up, and then I was adding 1 note at a time on top of that chord. So then it would be a doubling of that chord, but kind of it emphasizes different notes in the chord one after another, and then it comes to a full chord. It's kind of neat doing that. I love the chord. I had version 1, didn't like it. Version 2 with its individual outputs, 4 oscillators in there now. It's fantastic. It's really neat.
Yeah, it's really neat. Really fun to play with.
Yeah.
So what I was curious about is, are either of you building your own modules? Getting kits, putting things together. Or is that something that either of you dabble in?
I certainly do. I don't have any like Eurorack stuff, but a couple of years ago I built a drum machine. It's kind of a clone from the TR-808, and that's been kind of the only source of my drum sound since I built it. Since what else are you gonna do? What else do you need, right?
Yeah. That's pretty cool. How long did it take for you to put that one together?
Oh, geez. Must have been about a week every night soldering. It's not really fair to ask me that question since I design and build electronics for a living. So I don't know. That's like a useful metric for someone who doesn't do that professionally.
I'm not a very good solderer myself. I've done a couple things, but I'm not very good at it. I got into it very late, and I've had zero training in it. So for me,
Well,
it's
if you need a lesson, you know
it's
somebody to
fascinating.
call.
Well, thank you. I'll definitely take you up on that. When we can, because
Sure, yeah.
it's really a cool thing. Because to me, it's something to play, but it's something even more to understand the piece. If you build it and you know what's happening inside of it, you can understand it
Hmm.
and really get into it and really understand the programming behind it on who designed it. And that's really one of
Yeah.
the most fascinating things about putting together any circuit board.
I think that really connects to some ideas that I remember listening to during an interview I was watching with this. I can't remember the guy's name, but he was an important figure in the Detroit techno world. But what this guy was talking about is kind of the how do I explain this? The man-machine interface and understanding, and how assembly line workers would spend ages in front of a machine stamping out car parts or spraying paint or screwing down things. And eventually they would become very in tune with the machine that they would come back to every day for work. And that in tuneness and that understanding, I think, is really connected to the idea that you just brought up about like building a circuit and like using that for music purposes, et cetera.
Yeah, it's something that still fascinates me, and I am still very much a student trying to learn more. Dave,
That's great.
do any soldering yourself?
Yeah, I have probably about a dozen modules in there, maybe a little bit more. I've put together myself all the Turing machine stuff and some of the radio music modules. I built a Kotelnikov. That's probably the most complex one I've done, which is an oscillator, Russian oscillator. Yeah, I like doing it. It's an incredibly challenging thing to do and can be very frustrating, obviously, especially when it doesn't work. I've had a few of those. But it is satisfying, and when you plug it in and it does work, I mean it's a great feeling. It's a feeling hard to describe. Getting onto the what do you call it, the SMCs or SMDs, right? Service mount components.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't tried that yet. I've done a few where there were a couple I could hand solder on, but I haven't done a whole circuit board that way. That's probably the next challenge I would look at doing. Yeah, it's fun to do, but I think you have to do it just from the standpoint that you're getting satisfaction in making it yourself, rather than trying to build a whole Eurorack system and soldering everything yourself. That would be a lot. Very frustrating, I would think. But yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, that's definitely
I
something.
think I've bought four. I bought 4 radio music modules, and I think 2 of them have worked. Oh, 3 of them worked. Yeah.
Wow.
I think 5 and 3 of them have worked. Right.
Yeah, I'm so amateur at it that I had to hire Matt Bidoff to do a couple modules for me, just because I was way over my head when I first started a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, like it's really fascinating, and I'm impressed by you guys and anyone else who understands electronics enough to put these things together. It really has a skill level to it, and gives you a great understanding of what's going on of these components.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, is there what I was curious? I'm curious about what draws you to perform electronic music, and what's something about it that's started to draw you into it from the beginning, and what keeps you interested to continue to play and evolve and learn more. Ryan,
Shall I start?
please.
Okay. I think I started being interested in electronic music when I was much younger, like high school age or something. Just because I was that's the age when you're like just like vacuuming up different art and music as fast as you can, and that was something that was very different from the stuff that I listened to previously in my life. I didn't really like dive headfirst into creating it until much more recently, actually. And like the driving force that keeps me into it is actually the experiences I've had at like local venues, seeing like quote unquote underground electronic artists. Like the specific scene in the Bay Area is like really inspiring for me, and that's kind of that scene is kind of what is driving me to create the music that I'm making now. I'm thinking of like spending like a weeknight or a weekend night at Underground SF and like really like soaking in the atmosphere that like a DJ is trying to create through the course of their set, or trying to wrap my head around some like experimental or conventional live music that's created there. That's all electronic. So yeah, I guess my music is trying to like feed that community and support. Although I guess now no one's going clubbing, so it doesn't really mean it like that. Maybe now I'm trying to like keep the feeling of those places alive in our heads, or maybe it's escapism. I'm not sure.
Yeah, for me,
To
um,
escapism.
Hmm.
Yes,
yeah,
Dave.
for me it was light switches and buttons. It was cool. It was like Star Trek, being on the ship. Seriously, it was. So when I got out of high school, I went to school to become a recording engineer. Went to college, and one of the required classes was it was a synthesizer lab, and this was back in the early '80s, right? And they had Moog and they had OBs lined up on the walls. It was really kind of a unique setup they had. They were doing a lot of, they had professional engineers on staff teaching, producers and everything, and they had some bands coming in wanting to do demos, and they did a demo for a very little known Canadian band that ended up becoming Rush. So we had all this equipment in there, and it was really great equipment. We had one of the first DX7s and everything. And I just, even though I wanted to be a sound engineer, because again, switches and buttons and lights is cool. I fell in love with the whole modular thing because it's just so visceral. It's whole hands-on. You use your fingers to control soundscapes and everything. And I left the U.S. for many years and wasn't able to fully invest in it and actually do any music until I came back. And so just in the last few years, I've been able to actually put a modular together, and I just find it now I can produce or make my own music that sounds like music that I've been listening to for many years. I've always liked electronic music. So it's like a puzzle. You hear something and you want to create it. And when you can actually get even just a small part of any song that you really like and you can recreate it, it's amazing. It's a good feeling. It's like, wow, this is definitely doable. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's so much background in that. I want to keep asking you more questions about about your profession, but I probably shouldn't. I'm always fascinated with the technology that goes into synthesizers. I went to Synthplex last year, and that was so much fun. I just ran around and photographed and listened to every lecture I could sit in on, every panel.
Oh wow!
It was really fascinating. Even like things that I wasn't really interested in turned out to be fascinating. Like I went to a lecture, a panel on Sunday morning there in Burbank, and this lady was talking about miking a baseball set and football sets, and where all the microphones are set up in the ground on the field so they can hear every player at their positions. It was really fascinating. And
Oh, wow.
again, it's like, I'm not a sports guy. It's not something that I have any interest in, but learning more about the intricacies of miking a field, that's fascinating. That sounds really really fun, actually, and challenging.
Yeah, Simplex was great. I mean, a lot of good speakers there. It was fascinating. I was hired as a photographer for that. So I was going around and I had to take photos of all the different sections, and so I couldn't like spend all the time in one particular section. But there were some fascinating topics there. Roger Lynn was talking about the whole evolution of his products, and it's amazing just hearing all the different stories of how each of these different people took different approaches to get into the music business. That was a fun show. It's too bad they weren't able to do it this year, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that was very unfortunate, and because I know that Frank Martin, one of our friends, was going to play, and I think we're all looking forward to seeing that. And I was a volunteer photographer last year, and I just ran around and just shot everything I could, and it was really fascinating. I actually got to go into Thomas Dolby's set. He played, I think, a Saturday night, and because I was running around and because I had made a connection with an interviewer who had talked to Tom Hulkenberg's panel, he ended up giving me Tom Hulkenberg's seats because he couldn't make it to the show. So I got to sit at his table and watch Thomas Dolby do a live performance. And when he performed, I just took the opportunity, because everyone else was, to stand like maybe 6 feet away from him while he performed and just photographed him. And that was a delight.
That's great.
Fun show.
That's really great.
Yeah. So again, Ryan, Dave, thanks again for playing tonight, man. Thanks again for chatting with us tonight. It's really fun. Everyone online really appreciates the music you guys are producing and creating. We love the energy and the creativity that you put into this music. And it's so much fun to talk to you after a set. And that's one of the things that Rich and I both have a passion for with Piqued, is to talk to the artist afterwards and find out more about the process and get into the technology of it, and which is something that we all share together.
Yeah, I think this Piqued is like one of my favorite events in the city, just for like the artist to viewer communication stuff. I've always thought the interview portion of this was really, really fascinating. So I'm super thrilled to be able to be on the other side right now.
Yeah, it was definitely a pleasure. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and before we go, I wanted to ask Ryan and Dave, could you tell us a little bit about any upcoming album? I know Ryan, you've got an album you're working on. Is there anything we can ask about?
Well, I don't know. I've been answering first the whole time. I think Dave's got to go first for one of these. I just feel bad. I'm like taking the spotlight every time. Come on.
You're the one on the top of my screen, so you're first. No, so yeah, I'm working on an album. I'm planning on trying to get it out before maybe by the end of the year. So it'll be kind of a compilation of some of the stuff I've done, and then some new songs. And I'm also working on a vinyl track, a vinyl release compilation that'll be coming up in a couple months, I think. So working on that right now. So that's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Is that the Modular Alliance?
Yeah. Now you can probably see the track behind me on the screen.
Oh no, I'm just involved.
That'll be yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Your photography is going to be on the cover, right?
It is, yes.
Cool.
Excellent.
I'm very excited about it. And really happy to be able to contribute to this upcoming compilation that we'll talk about at a later date.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so I do have a shorter thing coming out in a couple weeks. It should be, I think, October 13th. It's through a record label in Spain called Urban Connections. It's all music that's like, I didn't play any of the music for that release tonight at all. All of it's like very short form, like 3 minutes maximum pieces, and like a very classic like Detroit techno vibe. For me, that was, how do I explain this? For me, like writing that music came very quickly, and I just decided to do the short form thing to kind of speed up the process. And it was really emotionally about like thinking about something that made me happy and then making that, as opposed to like dwelling on, the surrounding problems of the world. Yeah.
That's great, and I'm really looking forward to hearing it.
Oh yeah, yeah. So just a couple weeks now, I think.
Excellent. Is it
Yeah.
so it's coming up, yeah, in early October. Looking forward to
Mhm.
that, and we can find both of you on Bandcamp. Is that right?
Mhm.
So we've got VIR
Yes.
on Bandcamp, we've got WabiSabi on Bandcamp, and we've got your, I believe we posted it on the chat form on YouTube, so everyone can find your Bandcamps right
Perfect.
there with a direct link.
Perfect.
Well, Ryan and Dave, thank you so much again for playing Peak tonight. I really appreciate it. As the host of the show and the booker of it, I admire everybody that we have on here. So I want to thank you guys again, because I'm a fan. I enjoy the music you produce. I really enjoy talking to you guys. It's been a lot of fun, kind of getting to know you a little bit here and there in, getting in preparation for the show. It's been a lot of fun, and this is always a blast to do. And it's really great that we can still do it even at a distance. It's of course, doing the live show, Ryan, as you know, is so much fun to be in
Oh yeah,
that atmosphere and see
yeah,
everybody perform live and like actually go up and look at everyone's set, and gear, and talk to
yeah.
everybody in person is always a lot of fun.
Hmm.
And Dave, I really hope that maybe next year when we're able to all get together again, you can come down and check it out sometime in person. It's a lot of fun, man. We do it out
Yeah.
of an
Yeah,
office
I'd love to do it.
space in downtown San
Yeah,
Francisco,
definitely.
and it's a blast.
Yeah. Corey's
Any
talking it
excuse
up.
to drive south, that would be.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dave.
Wait, no, I want to hear about the space now.
No, I was just gonna say that Corey is talking it up as you should, as a promoter and the booker, but as an audience member, it's really good, and he's 100% on the money with all his praise.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I've seen the videos of it. It looks like a lot of fun.
It's great.
Oh yeah. Rich Hogben, who was the guy behind the scenes, he's mind behind the curtain. He's and as he's doing it right now, he's so amazing with setting up all the video feeds. And when we did the live stuff all last year, he did all the camera work, set it all up, and we talked about angles, things like that. He even came up with some nice blue lighting later on in last year, which was a lot of fun and really brought in a great atmosphere for the performances.
Yeah, there's a great photo that maybe you took, Corey, of Nathan with that like kind of bluish lighting in the background. That's a good one.
Here that was probably Aaron Whitmore. He was our resident photographer for our later shows. He kind of asked me a few months, probably late in 2019. He asked if he could come and do photography, and that was something we really needed, was a resident photographer. And since I was too busy being a host, running around and talking and mingling with everybody, he provided that. And I really hope that Aaron Whitmore can come back when we do the live shows again and continue to do photography for us, because he's an excellent photographer. And I hope he's watching, because I miss him. He's always a really nice guy to talk to.
Looks like we lost it.